Okay. This one has been requested by a couple of people, and it is a little celebrity reading. And it's not technically mediumship because this is somebody who is still very much alive, but I've had a few people asking me about Hugh Laurie and his past life and what maybe things were like in a prior incarnation. Now, I do believe that we have had multiple lifetimes, or more specifically that we are in multiple, okay, this is gonna get weird. That we're currently living multiple lifetimes all at once, but because we're sort of in like this 3D kind of universe, we're only able to perceive maybe one at a time. But that's a whole other video on its own. So I think we're gonna just look at maybe the most, the incarnation or the past life that has the most effect on his current life. Okay, that's maybe what I want to know. Which incarnation is kind of most relevant to this one? So, this is going to be fun. I haven't really done a lot of past life kind of readings, but it is something I'm interested in. So as soon as I get situated and get my camera pointing the way I want it to, we'll be ready to go. Okay, so Hugh Laurie, in his past life, that has the strongest effect on his current life. Let's see. Okay, and I'll show you guys what I have. Okay, ready? Ooh, you know what? Not the best angle. If you need to pause the video and look, now is probably the best time. But yeah, anyways. Our first two. There's an element of victimization and an element of having been hurt. I could have been physically hurt, but definitely very emotionally hurt. And sort of feeling like, what is the best way? He had a hard life in that incarnation. Things were pretty tough. And it's like this, he kind of felt as though, and I'm also just going off my intuition here too, he kind of felt as though he had to be on guard at all times. And if he ever let his guard down, he would be hurt. Just kind of listening to this King of Swords. This was like the crossing, kind of opposing force. What is this King of Swords telling me about? Ooh! All right, let me fix that. With this King of Swords, I was going to say before my camera fell down, not necessarily that it was like the law of the land that he lived in, but it was like an overall societal rule, unwritten rule, that life sucks and then you die. Like, I'm not sure how long ago this was, but I am getting it was very long ago. Life was a lot more difficult, and there was a greater struggle to survive. Spirit, was this before or after, like, the plague times? Because I got an energy of, like, the plague era, and I know that the Black Death, that was kind of, that affected the population for many, many, many years, right? But that's, for some reason, I'm sort of getting that as a timeline. $1500s. I did hear 15. Okay. So still a time where maybe if you were rich, life would have been okay. You may have survived to like 40, but if you were just a regular dude, life was a struggle. And that's just sort of the way it was. That was the truth of that situation for him. And some of this too was maybe just part of his mindset as well, that he really, really struggled with the fact that his life was hard. In his early life, insecurity, I guess some of it being money was scarce. I heard money was scarce. Food was sometimes hard to come by. But there's an emotional insecurity that really, really comes in with this card. Abuse from a woman, from his mother. This, not his mother in this lifetime. I mean his mother in the previous lifetime, guys, so don't worry. But in that particular lifetime, he faced a lot of hurt and abuse from his mother. And I just got a mom energy from that Queen of Cups. And this is like an emotional, the cups are an emotional suit. So this, something I am getting is that an element, there was a lot of emotional abuse. We nowadays would consider it emotional abuse. Or possibly even neglect is another sort of thing I'm getting from like when he was a child, which is also partly why he was really insecure. And his mother, when he was a child, this was somebody that he trusted. I mean, as a child should. Children should be able to rely on their parents and trust their parents to protect them as best they can and to take good care of them and to love them. But yet I'm getting the mom had some emotional problems. And back then, nowadays, we would consider it like a mental illness or possibly even a personality disorder. But back then, that wasn't known. All that was really known was like, well, this person is kind, this person is not kind, kind of a thing. And the thing about his mother is that I'm getting the feeling that there was an emotional and a bit of a mental instability with her, which led to just this abuse and hard times during his early life. So then in the middle of his life, I have death. And this is the feeling I got when I pulled this is like his mother died. And maybe this is why I heard like plague times in 1500s. That could actually have been what she died from. She could have been really, she could have had the plague. I do feel that she died relatively young. For us, it would be young. I'm getting an energy like she was in her 40s. And nowadays, that's way too young to die. But back then, that was kind of expected. People didn't really live that long. And things changed quite a bit after his mother passed away. Okay, I'm trying to show this a little bit closer, but the sunlight's doing a thing, so. He had to fend for himself. He had to go off and take care of himself. He would have been they would have considered him a young man. He would have been about a teenager. So the feeling I'm getting is that when his mother died, he would have been a teenager. I am also getting that he had to take care of her before she died because there was nobody else. She only had him, and it was like he only had her. But something about it sort of kick-started, I guess, what we'd call the spiritual awakening, or just the next great big phase in his life, where he was free from her particular abuse, maybe not free from, the sort of trauma that follows when somebody has been abused. But then again, that was just what they thought life was. They just thought life was a struggle and life was hard. It doesn't mean that they didn't have any joy. That is something that comes in with me. With this Chariot, I did get that he was kind of happy that his mother died. He was kind of happy about it. But I guess it just sort of freed him up to go on to the next phase of his life, because what he had was no longer there. Okay. I'm getting he tried a few different things. And remember, he had to survive too. I am getting a feeling that there are different jobs that he tried to do. I heard woodworking apprentice was one thing he tried to do. Lumber mill was another thing I had heard too, but it didn't work out. And then I'm just getting no specifics here, but just there were a couple of other ways he tried to make money, or he tried to earn some money. He tried to earn his keep at a few different places in which he stayed, but it did not work out. Then we have the Hierophant. I wonder if he had been taken in by a church, or it was some kind of an institution like that. Not institution like mental, but an institution like an established organization or something. That he didn't really have anywhere else to go, so maybe he turned to the church for help. Because especially in those times, the church had a lot of influence, and they had a lot more power than today. So it's like he went to them for help. Now there are a couple of, I'm gonna have to pull some clarifiers, I think, just to get a few little details. But we know from his time there, we have the Star. He finally felt hopeful. And I am also getting he felt like he had a bit more purpose in his life and that there's a bit more meaning. So I don't know exactly what it was he did in the church, and I might pull, a clarifier on that maybe. But he actually felt like things were starting to go okay, and he had reason to have more hope. And this was really good, and this new part of his life. This was the new thing that he did the new thing that he was able to stick with doing after his mother died. And I'm hearing he excelled. He excelled. And then we have the Tower. So something happened. Something really shook things up and changed things. So what? I am sort of getting like a death energy, like he could have, this maybe was representing when he died, because the pile I am pulling from that was like in the middle of his life ends with the Hierophant, and then we're going into sort of like the end of his life. So I had for the end of his life like the Star, Ace of Wands, and Tower. So like he really excelled at whatever it was he was doing in the church, and I sort of want to fill in a few blanks now. What did he do in the church? Or why did he excel so much? What was his like position? Okay. So I'm not getting the energy that he was a priest or that he had a really high position or anything, but he worked there. And this is suggesting to me that maybe nowadays we'd call him like the maintenance man, but he did do repairs. He did small repairs around this particular parish. That's what that's called. And he maintained, I'm getting an image of him patching, it was like this particular church or cathedral. It is Catholic. That's another sort of energy I'm getting from it. It was like a bigger kind of a church made of stone, and it was made of rock. So I'm getting an image of him patching like a crack. There was a crack, and he's like filling it and patching holes in the walls and filling in. I'm also getting the energy like around the floors. There were holes where like mice would crawl in and live and stuff. And I'm getting images of him patching over it with some kind of maybe cement, some kind of like sticky wet stuff that it would harden when it dried. So he did that. But at the same time, like that was his job. And they took him in and I guess he showed he was really good at fixing things. He was a really good maintenance dude. And so they kept him and they let him live there. That's another thing I'm getting, is they let him stay there. I'm wondering if that's maybe like as like his payment. I don't know if they were able to pay him money, but he was able to live there and eat food and wasn't necessarily abused by his mother anymore. The World card was one that came out. It was like he felt like that was where he belonged. And it's not I'll get into this in a minute, but it wasn't like just the job itself is where he felt he belonged, but it was in being in this church. And now what I'm going to get to. This is the card of like a legacy. So he left a good legacy for himself and for the church. He had a good reputation, and he brought the church a good reputation because I have stress and heartbreak. It's almost like he helped to counsel people, or just I am getting the image that he would talk to people while he worked. And there's a graveyard in the back kind of side of this church, and he would maintain the graveyard as well. And he would talk to the people that were out there mourning their loved ones. He would be out there talking to people, and just people would come to the church just to talk to him while he worked, and just to visit with him, and just to spend time with him. And this is where we get into him creating a great reputation for himself and for the church, and this legacy that he had left behind in that lifetime was that he seemed to have brought comfort to people who were suffering and to people who were mourning. And like just people in the village, or I guess it's a village. I'm not really getting a sense of how big the center he lived in was, but people would come from all over that village, and even from outside. People would travel. After a while, after he got really well known, people would travel to come and see him and talk to him and just spend time with him, because there was something about his presence that was so calming, and it helped people who were hurting to just feel like somebody empathized and sympathized. Because remember, that like sort of unwritten societal thing was that life is hard, life sucks. And at the same time, maybe some people knew different, like life could be good, life could be enjoyable. But for the most part, a lot of people's attitude was that life is a struggle. And there was actually a very common belief in the church, certainly Catholicism. I'm not too sure about the historical, exactly where he was like in history, but I am getting 1500s energy now. There was a belief that the more you struggled in your life on earth, the better your life in heaven would be. And that if you had a hard life on earth, you would have just the biggest rewards. You would have the easiest life in heaven. And so some people really did act as martyrs a lot of the time. And some people really embraced the difficulty that was life in this society, because they believed it meant that when they eventually died, that they would be rewarded very, very heavily once they got to heaven. Now, did he subscribe to this belief? He thought about it. He was aware of it. Sometimes when he was struggling, it did sort of bring him some comfort, but it wasn't his motivation. He wanted to make sure that the people that he talked to just felt like somebody cared about them, because he spent a lot of his life feeling like nobody cared about him. So that sort of leads to like the legacy he left behind, at least until everyone in those generations died out, and eventually stuff gets forgotten and people get forgotten and things like that. But he spent the remainder of his life in that church helping people. And it's really sweet. It is really sweet. And it's just like, it was just so healing to be around him. And sometimes the thing about people who are healers is that you have to know what it's like to hurt before you can heal. You have to know what it's like to need healing before you can give healing. And that was definitely a theme in his life. And now we're going to get into the last sort of section of this, which when I laid cards, I asked, what was the overall theme of that lifetime? That it's okay to move on to new things once an old thing has finished or has passed away, or once an older thing just is no longer working. When it is time to make the changes, it's okay to make changes. So after his mother passed away, he tried, like we had seen earlier, he tried different jobs, like the lumber mill, the woodworking apprenticeship, or the two that came in, but there were more, and those didn't work out. But it was okay. He learned lessons, and he connected with people. Something I'm getting is that he just wasn't very good at those jobs. He wasn't very good at whatever it was he had to do with like working with wood and working in the mill. And that maybe was just something he had to learn, was, okay, well, I didn't like doing this, so it's time for me to try something else. And then I am getting, he was hungry, and that's why he went into that church to begin with. He was hungry. And it just kind of led to something really great there. There was, I guess this will do. he was given help and support by that church he went into. I guess he proved somehow that he was good at fixing things, and he was good at doing small repairs. He was good at maintaining the cemetery. And then we later in his life, we find here that he was really good at helping people and listening to them and offering advice. And just for some people, it was just offering condolences or just to help console them and just show them that I care. I'm sorry that you went through this, but somebody does care about you. Somebody cares about what you've been through. So he was offered support, and he in turn gave the support. And he was very well received. Maybe a little bit of a celebrity at the time. People, like I had said, from all over the village had come to speak with him, and some people would travel to see him, or during their travels, they, would happen to stop and maybe chat with him or get to know him. And he had become quite popular and quite well liked. And so in this sort of end of his life, he was very successful, very victorious compared to what he had come from. The tower is just showing me that, yeah, he died in the church. Heart attack is what I heard. They may not have known at the time to call it that, but that is what seems to have happened. And it happened while he was in the church, and it was just, he woke up and it was a regular day, and then all of a sudden it just wasn't. All of a sudden he's back in the spiritual realm. So I really liked knowing, I did not like knowing that he really struggled and had a hard time, but that's almost expected from a lifetime during, anywhere from like the medieval times to like the 1300s, 1500s, and during the Renaissance kind of period and stuff. But what I do like hearing is that he did not let his pain ruin him. He just kept moving on. He just kept on going in his life. He just kept moving forward. And as a result, he was able to help other people by just offering his time and just listening and talking to them. And like I had said a few times, just offering sympathy and support and empathy and just showing that, yeah, somebody cares about you. So that was a really nice one. I really enjoyed that reading. Thank you to the people who've suggested that. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. And if you want to see more celebrity tarot readings, feel free to click, I'm going to have to put this in my end screen. Feel free to click on the tab that's going to have the celebrity tarot readings. If you want to look at more like mediumship kind of readings, I'm going to have a playlist there too for mediumship. If you want me to do more past life sort of stuff, absolutely let me know in the comments. And in the meantime, feel free, like, comment, subscribe, share if you want to share, hit the notification bell if you want to know every time I update a new video. And with that, enjoy your day.